The cowboy expected a simple mail-order bride, but the woman who arrived left him speechless. The cowboy woke before the sun, the same way he had every morning for years. The sky was still dark, and the stars were fading slowly as a pale line of light touched the far edge of the land. The air was cold and quiet, and the only sound was the soft wind moving through the tall grass. He sat up on the edge of his bed and took a deep breath. Another long day waited for him, just like the ones before. He pulled on his boots and stepped outside. The ranch spread out in every direction, wide and empty. Fences ran across the land like thin lines drawn on the earth. The barn stood strong but old, its wooden walls marked by time and hard weather. He had built much of this place with his own hands. Every post, every board, every corner of the house carried his effort and his sweat. It was something he was proud of, but pride did not fill the quiet that followed him everywhere. As he walked toward the barn, he thought about how silent his life had become. Years ago, he had imagined this land full of voices, laughter, and warmth. He had seen a table with more than one plate, a porch with 2 chairs instead of 1. But time passed, and those dreams stayed in his mind instead of becoming real. He fed the animals and checked the fences, moving through his work without thinking too much. His body knew the routine well. Still, his mind wandered. Will help him. He kept thinking about the letter folded in his pocket. It was thin and simple, but it felt heavy, like it carried a future inside it. He had not planned to write to a mail-order bride. The idea had come to him late one night when the wind was loud and the house felt too empty. He had been sitting at the small wooden table staring at a cold plate of food when he realized he did not want to grow old, talking only to the walls and the open land. So he wrote a letter. He did not try to sound clever or fancy. He told the truth. He said he lived on a ranch far from town. He said the work was hard and the days were long. He said he did not have much money, but he had land, honesty, and a steady life. He said he was looking for a woman who wanted a simple home and a quiet future. When he sent the letter, he did not expect much. He thought it might disappear into the world and never come back. But weeks later, a reply arrived. He remembered the moment clearly. The mail rider had handed him the envelope, and he had stood there staring at his name written in careful handwriting. His hands had shaken a little as he opened it. The words inside were gentle and kind. The woman said she wanted a fresh start. She said she was not afraid of work and did not need a rich life, only a good one. She asked about the land, the house, and the way he lived. They began to write back and forth. The letters became something he looked forward to more than anything else. He started to finish his work faster, not because he rushed, but because he wanted to sit down and read her words again. He learned small things about her past, her hopes, and the reason she wanted to leave her old life behind. But even as he felt closer to her, he kept a simple picture in his mind. He imagined a quiet woman, tired of the world, ready to settle into a calm life on the ranch. He thought she would follow his lead, learn his ways, and fit into the space he had made for her. That morning, after finishing his work, he walked back to the house and took the letter out of his pocket. This one was different. It was short and clear. She wrote that she would arrive in 2 days. She thanked him for giving her a chance and said she hoped they could build something good together. He sat down and read it again and again. 2 days. The words felt unreal. After so much waiting, the moment was finally close. The rest of the day passed in a blur. He cleaned the house, even the places no one ever saw. He fixed a loose board on the porch and swept the floor until it shone. He made a list of things he needed from town: like fresh food, new blankets, and a small mirror for the bedroom he had prepared for her. That night, he could not sleep. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about every letter they had shared. He wondered if she would be disappointed when she saw the ranch. It was not beautiful in a fancy way. It was rough, wide, and shaped by hard work. He wondered if he had promised more than he could give. The next day, he rode into town. The town was small, with a few shops and a single street that ran straight through the middle. People nodded at him as he passed, the way they always did. They knew him as the quiet rancher who kept to himself. Some of them knew about the woman who was coming. A few smiled and wished him luck. Others looked curious, as if they were waiting to see what kind of person would choose a life so far from everything. He bought what he needed and stopped by the station to check the train schedule. The man behind the counter told him the train would arrive just after noon the next day. The cowboy thanked him and stepped outside, feeling his chest grow tight. The time was almost here. That evening, he sat on the porch as the sun went down. The sky turned soft shades of gold and red, and the land glowed for a short moment before fading into shadow. He thought about how many times he had watched this same view alone. Tomorrow, someone else would stand beside him, someone who had chosen this place and this life. He tried to imagine her face, but it never became clear in his mind. All he could picture were the words from her letters, the calm and strength in the way she wrote. He wondered if her voice would sound gentle or firm. He wondered if she would smile easily or keep her feelings hidden. When morning came, he woke even earlier than usual. He dressed carefully, choosing a clean shirt and brushing his hair, something he rarely did. He fed the animals and checked the fences, but his hands moved faster than normal. His heart beat louder with every step. He saddled his horse and rode toward the station, the land passing by in a slow, steady rhythm. The wind touched his face, cool and sharp, and the sky above was wide and clear. He told himself to stay calm. He reminded himself that this was just a meeting, just the start of something that would take time. When he reached the station, only a few people were waiting. A woman with a basket, an older man leaning on a cane, and a young boy who kept looking down the tracks. The cowboy stood a little apart, his hands resting on his belt, his eyes fixed on the far end of the line. Minutes passed. Each one felt longer than the last. Then, in the distance, he heard the low sound of the train. The ground seemed to hum as it came closer. A thin line of smoke rose into the sky. His heart began to race. This was it. The moment he had imagined for so long was finally real. The train slowed and stopped with a loud hiss. The doors opened and people began to step down, one by one. He scanned every face, searching for someone who looked like the woman from his letters, though he did not truly know what that meant. Then he saw her. She stepped down with steady feet, her back straight, her eyes alert and clear. She did not look lost or unsure. She looked like someone who knew exactly where she was and why she had come. Her clothes were simple, but the way she carried herself made her stand out. There was a quiet strength in her movement, a calm confidence that caught his breath. For a moment he forgot how to move. This was not the tired, gentle figure he had imagined. This woman looked like she had lived a full life already, like she carried her past with her and was not afraid of what came next. Their eyes met. The woman took a step forward, her boots touching the wooden platform with a soft sound. She looked around the small station, taking in the quiet town, the wide sky, and the land that stretched far beyond the tracks. The cowboy stood still, unsure of what to say first. His heart felt like it was beating in his ears. She walked toward him, her eyes steady but curious. When she stopped in front of him, She gave a small, polite smile. "You must be him," she said. Her voice was calm, clear, and strong, not shy or uncertain like he had imagined. He nodded, feeling his words get stuck in his throat. "Yes, I am," he finally said. "And you must be her." She laughed softly, a short, warm sound. "I guess so," she replied. For a moment, they just stood there, both unsure of what to do next. People passed by them, picking up bags and greeting friends, but it felt like the world had slowed down around them. He reached for her suitcase. "Let me help you with that," he said. She hesitated for a second, then handed it to him. It was heavier than he expected. He lifted it and felt the weight pull on his arm.
"You packed a lot," he said, trying to sound light. She smiled again.
"I brought my life with me," she said. "I did not know what I would find here, so I wanted to be ready for anything." They walked toward his horse and small wagon. As he loaded her suitcase, he noticed the way she looked around, not with fear but with interest. She seemed to study every detail, from the old buildings to the dusty road. The ride back to the ranch began in silence. The horse moved at a steady pace, and the wheels rolled over the dirt road. The land opened up around them, wide and empty, with tall grass moving in the wind like waves. She broke the silence first. "It is very open here," she said. "I have never seen a place like this before." He nodded. "It can feel too open sometimes," he replied, "but you get used to it." She looked at him. "Do you like it?" He thought for a moment. "Most days, yes," he said. "Some days it feels a little lonely." She did not answer right away. She looked out at the land again. "I think lonely places can also be peaceful," she said. "It depends on who you share them with." Her words stayed with him for the rest of the ride. When they reached the ranch, he stopped the horse and helped her down. She stood still for a moment, taking in the house, the barn, and the wide fields. The house was simple, made of wood and built for work, not for beauty. The barn stood a short distance away, strong but worn. "This is it," he said, unsure if he should sound proud or apologetic. She walked a few steps forward and touched the porch railing with her hand, feeling the rough wood. "It feels honest," she said, "like it belongs to the land." He had never heard anyone describe his home that way before. It made something warm grow in his chest. Inside, he showed her around. The kitchen was small but clean. The table sat near a window that looked out over the fields. He showed her the room he had prepared for her, with a simple bed, a small dresser, and a mirror on the wall. "I hope it is enough," he said. She set her bag down and looked around. "It is more than enough," she replied. "Thank you for making space for me." That evening they sat at the table and ate together. The meal was simple, but the quiet between them felt different from the quiet he was used to. It was not empty. It was full of questions and thoughts, waiting to be spoken. He asked her about her journey. She told him it had been long, with many stops and crowded trains. She said she had watched the land change outside the windows, from busy towns to open fields like his. He asked about where she came from, and she spoke carefully. She said her old life had been small and full of rules that did not fit her. She said she wanted a place where she could build something new, something that felt like it was truly hers. "And you?" she asked. "Why did you choose to write to someone far away instead of finding someone closer to home?" He looked down at his hands. "There is not much of a town here," he said. "Not many people, and I am not very good at talking." Writing felt easier. She nodded, as if she understood more than he had said. The next morning, she woke early. He found her outside, standing near the fence, watching the animals. "I hope you do not mind," she said. "I could not sleep." "I wanted to see how the day begins here," he smiled. "It begins early," he said. "If you want, you can help. But I should warn you, it is not easy." She looked at him with a small challenge in her eyes. "I did not come here for easy," she said. He showed her how to feed the animals and how to carry water. She listened closely and tried to copy what he did. Sometimes she made mistakes, and he corrected her. Sometimes she corrected him, noticing things he had missed. By midday, both of them were tired, but there was a strange comfort in working side by side. The ranch felt different with her there. The air felt lighter, the silence less heavy. In the afternoon, they sat on the porch to rest. The sun was high, and a soft breeze moved through the grass. "You work like someone who has done this all her life," he said. She laughed. "I worked in many places," she replied. "None like this. But work is work. It teaches you how to stand on your own." He looked at her, really looked at her, and saw that her strength was not just in her hands or her back, but in the way she faced the world. That night, a storm rolled in. The sky darkened, and the wind grew strong. Thunder sounded in the distance. He went out to check the barn, and she followed him without being asked. Rain began to fall, heavy and cold. They ran together, laughing as they tried to stay dry. When they reached the barn, both of them were soaked, breathing hard. They stood there for a moment, the rain drumming on the roof. He looked at her, her hair wet, her face bright with energy. He realized then that she was not just a guest in his life. She was someone who could change it. When they went back inside, he made a fire. They sat near it, drying their clothes and hands. The light from the flames moved across the walls, warm and soft. "Do you ever regret coming here?" he asked quietly. She thought for a moment. "No," she said. "I was afraid, yes, but I am not sorry. Fear means you are stepping into something new." He nodded, feeling like he was stepping into something new as well. Over the next few days, they learned more about each other. She asked questions about the land, the seasons, and how he had learned to live this way. He asked about her past, her dreams, and what she hoped to find here. Sometimes they disagreed. She had ideas about how things could be done differently, and he was used to his own ways. But instead of arguing, they talked. They listened. One evening, as the sun went down, she stood at the edge of the field, watching the sky change colors. "It is beautiful," she said, "but it is also big."
It makes you feel small.
He stood beside her. "It makes me feel steady," he said, "like the land will still be here even when everything else changes." She looked at him. "Maybe that is why I came," she said, "to find something that does not move away from me." He did not know how to answer that. He only knew that her words had touched something deep inside him. That night, as he lay in bed, he listened to the quiet sounds of the ranch. For the first time in a long time, the silence did not feel empty. It felt like a space that was slowly being filled, not by noise, but by another person's presence. And somewhere in the other room, he knew she was awake too, thinking about the same wide land, the same uncertain future, and the strange path that had brought them together. The days began to follow a steady rhythm. Morning light came through the windows, and the smell of fresh air filled the house. The woman woke early, often before the cowboy, and stepped outside to watch the land as it slowly came to life. Birds moved across the sky, and the grass swayed in the soft wind. She liked these quiet moments, when the world felt open and full of promise. The cowboy noticed the change in his routine. He no longer felt alone when he walked out to the barn. He would often find her already there, brushing dust from her hands or studying the animals with a careful eye. "You are becoming part of this place," he said one morning. She smiled. "I am trying," she replied, "but it is also becoming part of me." They work together more each day. He showed her how to mend a fence, how to spot weak posts, and how to guide the animals without rushing them. She listened closely and remembered everything. Sometimes she asked questions that made him stop and think. Questions about why he did things the way he did. One afternoon, while they were fixing a broken gate, she said, "You always walk the long way around the field. Why not take the shorter path?" He paused, hammer in hand. "That path floods when it rains," he said. "I learned that the hard way." She nodded. "Maybe we can build a small bridge there," she suggested. "Then you would not have to go so far." He looked at her, surprised. "I never thought of that." She shrugged. "Sometimes a problem stays a problem because no one looks at it from a new angle." Her words stayed with him. He began to notice how she saw the ranch differently. Where he saw habits, she saw chances for change. Where he saw limits, she saw space to grow. Not all days were easy. There were moments when their differences came to the surface. One evening, he found her moving tools in the shed, placing them in a new order. "I had them set a certain way," he said, trying to keep his voice calm.
She looked up. "I thought this way might be easier," she said.
"You can reach them faster." He felt a small wave of frustration. "I have been doing it my way for years," he replied. She stood still for a moment, then nodded. "I did not mean to take over," she said. "I only wanted to help." He saw the hurt in her eyes and felt a pang of regret. "I know," he said softly. "I am just used to things staying the same." They stood in silence, the air between them tight and uneasy. Finally, he took a breath. "Maybe we can try it your way for a while," he said. "If it works, we keep it." Her face brightened. "That sounds fair," she said. Small moments like this taught them how to meet in the middle. They learned that sharing a life meant sharing choices, not just space. In the evenings, they often sat on the porch as the sky changed colors. The sun would sink low, painting the land in soft gold and deep orange. They talked about many things, some simple, some deeper. She told him stories from her past. She spoke about growing up in a crowded place where everyone knew everyone else's business. She talked about feeling like she was always being watched, always being told who she should be. "I wanted to be somewhere I could hear my own thoughts," she said one night. "Somewhere I could decide who I am without everyone else's voice in my head." He listened closely. "Out here, the land is the loudest voice," he said. "But it does not tell you who to be. It only asks you to keep going." She smiled at that. "I like that idea," she said. He shared his own past with her. He spoke about losing his family when he was young, about learning to take care of himself before he knew how to ask for help. He told her how the ranch had become both his shelter and his wall, a place where he felt safe, but also hidden. "I thought being alone was easier," he admitted. "You do not have to worry about letting anyone down." She looked at him gently. "But you also do not get the chance to lift anyone up," she said. Her words stayed with him long after the conversation ended. One afternoon, a neighbor rode up to the ranch. The man was older, with a slow smile and a curious look in his eyes. He greeted the cowboy warmly, then turned to the woman. "So this is the one we have been hearing about," he said. She laughed. "I hope the stories are kind." she replied. The neighbor stayed for a while, talking about the weather and the land. He asked questions about how things were going, about whether the ranch felt different now. After he left, the cowboy noticed that she seemed quiet. "Are you all right?" he asked. She nodded. "I am," she said. It is just strange to be someone people talk about instead of someone who fades into the background. He thought about that. Out here, people notice when something changes, he said. And you have changed a lot. She looked at him. "So have you," she said. A few days later, a strong wind swept across the land. Clouds gathered, and the air felt heavy. The cowboy knew a storm was coming. He began to move quickly, securing the barn and checking the fences. She followed him, helping without being asked. The wind grew louder, and dust filled the air. They worked side by side, shouting over the noise. When the rain finally came, it was sudden and fierce. They ran for the house, soaked and laughing again, their earlier tension forgotten in the rush of the moment. Inside, they closed the door and leaned against it, catching their breath. The power of the storm made the world outside feel small and far away. The sound of rain on the roof was steady and strong. They sat by the fire, wrapped in blankets, watching the flames move. The light danced across their faces, and the room felt warm and close. "I used to be afraid of storms," she said quietly. "They made me feel like I had no control." He looked at her. "I always liked them," he said. "They remind me that some things are bigger than us, and that is all right." She nodded. "Maybe that is what this place is teaching me," she said. "How to let go a little." He realized then how much he had been learning, too. He had learned how to listen more, how to share space and time, how to see his own life through someone else's eyes. As the storm passed, they went back out onto the porch. The air was fresh, and the land looked clean and new, like it had been washed and given another chance. She took a deep breath.
"It feels like starting over," she said. He stood beside her.
"Maybe we both are," he replied. Days turned into weeks. The ranch no longer felt like just his. It felt like something they were building together, even in the smallest ways. A new bridge over the flooded path, a small garden she started near the house, a chair she placed beside his on the porch. One evening, as they sat watching the stars, she spoke softly. "Do you ever think about what comes next?" He thought for a moment. "I used to think only about getting through the day," he said. "Now I think about the seasons ahead, the years." She smiled. "I think about that too," she said, "about whether this place can become more than just a stop in my life." He looked at her, feeling a mix of hope and fear. "I would like it to be more," he said honestly. She did not answer right away. She looked up at the sky where the stars were bright and endless. Finally, she spoke. "I am starting to feel like it already is." They sat in silence after that, not an empty silence, but a full one, heavy with thoughts and feelings they were both still learning how to name. Inside, the house glowed softly with light. Outside, the land stretched wide and open, holding their voices, their steps, and the quiet promise of something still growing between them. The morning began with a strange stillness. The air felt heavy, and the sky was a pale gray instead of its usual clear blue. The cowboy stepped outside and looked across the land. The grass did not move, and even the birds seemed quiet. Something about the day made him uneasy, though he could not say why. The woman joined him on the porch, holding 2 cups of warm drink. She handed one to him and followed his gaze. "It feels like the world is holding its breath," she said. He nodded. Days like this often bring trouble, he replied. They did not have to wait long to find out what kind. By midday, a rider appeared at the far edge of the field. The man's horse was moving fast, and dust rose behind them. The cowboy recognized the rider as another neighbor from several miles away. He hurried down from the porch to meet him, and the woman followed a few steps behind. The rider did not waste time on greetings. "Your south fence is down," he said. "The wind last night knocked it over. Your animals are moving toward the open land." The cowboy felt a tight knot form in his chest. That fence was old and ran along a wide stretch of ground. If the animals wandered too far, it could take days to find them. "Thank you for telling me," he said. "I will head out now." The woman stepped forward.
"I will go with you," she said. He hesitated.
"It could take a while. The land out there is rough." She met his eyes. "We have worked together before," she said. "We can do this too." He nodded. "All right," he said. They saddled the horses and rode out, the wind picking up as they went. The sky darkened slowly, and clouds gathered in thick lines above them. The land stretched wide and empty, and the sound of their horses' hooves felt small against the open space. They reached the broken fence in the afternoon. Wooden posts lay on the ground, and the wire sagged low. A few animals were still nearby, grazing calmly, unaware of the trouble they were causing. The cowboy dismounted and began to check the damage. "We will need to fix this before night," he said. "If more animals wander off, it will be harder to bring them back." The woman tied her horse and walked over. "Tell me what to do," she said. He showed her how to lift the post and hold them steady while he worked the wire back into place. The wind grew stronger as they worked, tugging at their clothes and hair. Dust filled the air, and the sky turned darker with each passing minute. They moved quickly, but the work was hard. The ground was dry and stubborn, and the posts did not want to stay in place. At one point, the wire slipped from his hands and snapped back, cutting his skin. He winced, and she noticed right away. "You are hurt," she said. "It is nothing," he replied, though blood was already forming on his hand. She took a cloth from her pocket and pressed it gently against the cut. "You do not have to be strong all the time," she said. "Let me help." He looked at her, surprised by the softness in her voice. "Thank you," he said quietly. They kept working, the storm now close enough that thunder rolled across the sky. The first drops of rain fell, cold and heavy. Soon the ground began to turn dark with wet soil. "We need to finish this," he said, raising his voice over the wind. They pushed through the last part of the fence, setting the final post and tying the wire tight. Just as they finished, the rain began to pour. They ran for a small rocky overhang nearby, using it as shelter. They stood close together, both breathing hard, listening to the rain beat against the stone and the ground around them. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The world felt far away, hidden behind the wall of falling water. He broke the silence first. "I should not have asked you to come," he said. "It is dangerous out here." She shook her head. "You did not ask," she said. "I chose to." He looked at her, seeing the rain on her face, the way her eyes still held calm even in the middle of the storm. "Why?" he asked. "Why choose a life that is this hard?" She thought for a moment. "Because I want a life that is real," she said. "Not one where everything is decided for me. Out here, every day feels like a choice." Her words stayed with him. The storm passed as suddenly as it had come. The clouds broke apart, and a soft light spread across the land. The rain left the air fresh and cool. They rode back to the ranch in silence, both lost in their thoughts. That evening they sat inside near the fire. The room felt small and warm after the wide, open land. The light from the flames moved across the walls and the sound of the wind outside faded into the distance. He looked at his hand, now wrapped in the cloth she had used. "You took care of me today," he said. She smiled. "That is what people do when they share a path," she replied. He leaned back in his chair. "I am not used to sharing," he admitted. "For a long time it was just me and the land." She nodded. "I am not used to staying," she said. "I have always moved when things became too heavy or too quiet." He turned to her. "Does it feel heavy or quiet here?" She looked around the room, at the table, the fire, the door that led out to the wide land. "It feels full," she said, "in a way I did not expect." The next day brought another challenge. A letter arrived from town, carried by the mail rider. The cowboy opened it and frowned as he read. It was about a problem with the landline. Someone nearby was claiming part of his field, saying the boundary was not clear. He showed the letter to the woman. "This could turn into a long fight," he said. "I do not like trouble." She read it carefully. "We should go to town and talk to them," she said. "It is better to face things early than let them grow." He hesitated. "I usually avoid town unless I have to," he said. She smiled gently. "Sometimes stepping into a hard place is how you keep it from becoming harder." They rode to town together. The street was busy, and people looked at them as they passed. The cowboy felt uncomfortable, but the woman walked beside him with calm steps. They met the man who had made the claim. The conversation was tense at first. Voices rose, and the air felt tight. The cowboy felt his old habit rising, the urge to pull back and let things be. The woman placed a hand on his arm. "Let us talk this through," she said to the other man. "We all want to protect what we care about." Her words softened the moment. The men began to speak more calmly, laying out maps and old records. It took time, but by the end of the day, they reached an understanding. The boundary was marked clearly, and the problem was settled. On the ride home, the cowboy looked at her. "You handled that better than I would have," he said. She shrugged. "I learned that some problems need voices, not silence," she replied. As the days passed, he noticed a change in himself. He was no longer just reacting to what happened. He was planning, thinking ahead, imagining what could be built instead of just what needed to be fixed. One evening as they worked in the small garden she had started, he said, "I used to think this place was enough for me." She looked at him. "And now?" she asked. "And now? I think it could be enough for both of us." She paused, her hands still in the soil. "That is a big thought," she said. "I know," he replied. "I am not asking for an answer. I am just saying what I feel." She nodded slowly. "I appreciate your honesty," she said. That night the sky was clear and the stars were bright. They sat on the porch, wrapped in blankets, watching the quiet land. "I am afraid sometimes," she said softly. "Afraid that if I stay, I will lose the part of me that wants to keep moving." He listened. "I am afraid too," he said. "Afraid that if you leave, this place will go back to being just empty land and walls." She looked at him. "Maybe the answer is not about staying or leaving," she said. "Maybe it is about choosing each day again." He thought about that. "I can live with that," he said. The land stretched out before them, calm and steady under the night sky. The ranch, the fences, the house, and the small garden all felt like pieces of something still being built. Inside both of them, a quiet understanding was growing. Their connection was no longer just about sharing work or space. It was about sharing choices, fears, and hopes. Whatever came next, they knew it would not be simple, but they also knew it would not be faced alone. The morning sun rose gently over the land, spreading a soft light across the fields and the old wooden fences. The ranch looked calm and steady, as if it had always been waiting for this day. The cowboy stood on the porch, holding a cup of warm drink in his hands, watching the way the light touched the grass and the roof of the barn. Behind him, the woman stepped outside. She wrapped a shawl around her shoulders and stood beside him, quiet for a moment as she took in the view. "It never looks the same twice," she said. "The land changes every day, even if only a little." He nodded. "I think I am starting to notice that," he replied. "I used to see it as one long, steady thing."
Now I see the small changes, too.
They stood there together, sharing the quiet. The air was cool and fresh, and the world felt open and full of space. After breakfast, they began their usual work. The animals needed feeding, the garden needed water, and the barn needed cleaning. But something felt different in the way they moved that day. There was a sense of ease between them, a comfort that did not need words. As they worked, the cowboy found himself thinking about the past weeks. He remembered how unsure he had felt when she first arrived, how he had expected one kind of life and found another. He had thought he was inviting someone into his world, but he realized now that they had built a new one together. The woman was in the garden, pulling small weeds from the soil. She looked up and smiled when she saw him watching. "You look like you are lost in thought," she said. "Maybe I am," he replied. "I was thinking about how much has changed since you came here." She stood and brushed the dirt from her hands. "Change can be good," she said, "even when it is hard." He walked closer to her. "It has been good," he said. "I just did not expect it to feel this way." She tilted her head slightly. "How does it feel?" He searched for the right words. "Like this place is not just something I live in anymore," he said. "It feels like something I share." Her eyes softened. "I feel that too," she said. "For the first time in a long while, I feel like I belong somewhere." They went back to their work, but the weight of their words stayed with both of them. Later that day, they rode into town together. The market was busy, with people talking, laughing, and moving from stall to stall. The cowboy still felt a little out of place in the crowd, but he noticed that he did not feel as uncomfortable as before. The woman walked beside him, her presence steady and calm. They bought fresh food, seeds for the garden, and a few small items for the house. At one stall, the woman stopped and picked up a simple set of curtains. "These would look nice in the kitchen," she said. He smiled. "You are turning my house into a home," he said. She laughed. "It already is one," she replied.
"We are just making it warmer."
On the ride back, the sun began to set. The sky turned soft shades of pink and gold, and the land glowed gently. They rode in silence, not because they had nothing to say, but because the moment felt complete, just as it was. That evening, they hung the curtains together. The small kitchen window now held a touch of color and softness. The woman stepped back to look at them, hands on her hips. "What do you think?" she asked. "I think they make the place brighter," he said. "Like you do." She looked at him, surprised, then smiled. "That might be the nicest thing anyone has said to me in a long time," she replied. As night fell, they lit the lamp and sat at the table. The room felt warm and close, filled with the quiet sounds of their movements and the soft light around them. The cowboy took a deep breath. "There is something I want to say," he said. She looked up, giving him her full attention. "Go ahead," she said. He paused, choosing his words carefully. When I wrote that first letter, I thought I knew what I was asking for, he said. I thought I wanted someone to fill the empty space in my life. I did not think about how that person would change me too. She listened without interrupting.
You did not just fill a space, he continued. You opened it up.
You made it bigger, not smaller. You made me see this place and myself in a new way. She felt her chest grow tight as she heard him speak. I did not come here to change you, she said softly. I came here to change myself, but I think we did both. He nodded. I think so too. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of their shared journey resting between them. The next morning, the cowboy woke early, as he always did. But this time, he did not feel the old sense of routine pulling him forward. Instead, he felt a quiet excitement about the day ahead. He stepped outside and saw the woman already awake, sitting on the porch and looking out over the land. You cannot seem to stay in bed, he said with a small smile. She laughed. There is too much to see, she replied. Every morning feels like a new beginning. They decided to take a long ride across the far side of the land, a place he rarely visited. The path was rough, but the view was wide and open. They rode slowly, talking about small things and big dreams. At the top of a small hill, they stopped and looked out over the fields below. The ranch looked small from there, but strong and steady. This place could grow, the woman said. Not just in size, but in life. Maybe more gardens. Maybe a bigger house someday. Maybe even more people. He thought about that. I always thought this land was meant for just one person, he said. Now I see it could hold many stories. She looked at him. What kind of story do you want it to hold? She asked. He met her eyes. One where we keep choosing to walk this path together, he said. Her breath caught for a moment. She looked back at the land, then at him again. I can choose that, she said. One day at a time. They rode back to the ranch as the sun began to fall. The day felt full, not because of what they had done, but because of what they had decided. In the weeks that followed, they continued to build their life side by side. The garden grew, the bridge over the flooded path stood strong, and the house filled with small signs of care and comfort. Neighbors visited more often. They brought stories, food, and laughter. The ranch became a place where people felt welcome, not just a quiet stretch of land at the edge of the world. One evening, as the cowboy and the woman sat on the porch, the sky filled with stars. The air was cool, and the land was still. Do you ever think about how we started? She asked. With just a few letters and a lot of unknowns? He smiled. I think about it often, he said. I thought I was inviting someone into my life. I did not know I was stepping into a new one myself. She leaned back in her chair. I thought I was running away from my past, she said. I did not know I was running toward a future. They sat there, listening to the quiet sounds of the night. The cowboy felt a deep sense of peace settle in his chest. He realized that love, for him, was not a sudden moment or a single promise. It was this. The shared work, the shared fears, the shared hopes. The choice to stand beside someone even when the path was not clear. He turned to her. Thank you for choosing this place, he said. For choosing me. She looked at him, her eyes soft. Thank you for leaving space for me, she replied. Not just in your house, but in your life. They did not need to say anything more. The land stretched out before them, wide and steady under the stars. The ranch stood strong, not just as a place built from wood and wire, but as a home shaped by two people who had chosen, again and again, to walk forward together.